Hello class, welcome to lab number 6, week report number 6 and notes number 6. Allow me to load the instructions first. So for week report number 6, you're gonna do these 4 activities. You will complete note 6 first, then you're gonna do week report number 6, then you're gonna do lab 6, and then whatever time you have left, you're gonna dedicate it to working on your final project. So let me start preparing my folders. So I know I'm gonna need a folder for notes, so let's do notes 6. We need one for week reports, WR6. We need another one for labs, lab number 6, and that's about it. Okay. Now let's load the presentation so we can download the cheat sheet. We need to go to module number 2, wildcards, and we have one cheat sheet all the way in the end that we need to download. So let's click on the URL, and we have our file over here, so let's just move it. We know that it's in the downloads folder. It starts with capital W, there you go, and now let's move it to cheat sheets, and we're done with that. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. We can just leave it right there for now. And now let's create our note number 6. This is not different from the previous notes that you were working on. Here are the instructions. We're going to explain each of the wildcards, explain how to use brace expansion, include at least 3 examples of each. There is an article here that you can use to help you out if you click on the here link, or if you navigate to extras and then click on wildcards. This is a work in progress because I haven't added brace expansion yet, but here you're gonna find descriptions, why should you use wildcards, and you have this nice table here that I recommend that you copy. And you don't have to, you can even take a screenshot if you want to, but I definitely recommend that you have this in your notes because this is gonna be really useful to your final exam. Then it goes into explaining more about wildcards. This activity is not ready yet, so you won't be able to do it now. But you can copy these examples here, and you can practice these examples with other directories and files if you choose to do so. So you have information that you can use here, and you also have information that you can use in the presentation itself. Let me over here. So we have note 6, notes.md, note 6, and as I mentioned earlier, you can just take a screenshot of the table if you want, or you can simply write the table yourself. Now, there is another table in the presentation as well that you can copy if you want to. It's all the way towards the end, right over here. The difference is that this one doesn't have an example in the end of how to use it. So again, you can do either or. Just for the sake of having some context here, some content here, I'm just gonna copy this one. And this, we're gonna save it in notes 6, and we're gonna call this wildcard table.png. Wildcard table.png, and we can just put it right over here. Okay, and then here star wildcard matches 0 to any number of characters. Then sample list all the txt files, ls star.txt. You can find a lot of examples in the presentation, so just go through the presentation just like you do with all the other notes, and then finish the notes file. I'm just gonna save this and pretend that I finish. So I'm gonna right click, and then just like we do all the time, export to PDF. And now simply let's do our git commands. I'm gonna pull to make sure everything is up to date. And I finished my notes. You can go and submit your notes. Next, we're gonna work on, I believe, is the week report. So, complete week report number 6. And yeah, week report number 6 is just like the previous week. All you have to do is complete the practices in the presentation, take a screenshot, and then put them in your document. So again, go back to VS Code. Let me create my file wr6.md week report 6. There are 5 practice in the presentation, so practice, just gonna copy this to make my life easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember to put your screenshots there. Practice 1.png. P1. Two. I'm doing it this way because I know that that's the name that I'm gonna give to each and every one of the screenshots, right? But you can always do this in the end when you finish with your practice, right? When you finish doing all the practice, you come here and then you write your markdown. But I am very consistent with my naming conventions, so I'm gonna name them this way, as you have seen throughout all the labs. So I'm just gonna save myself some time by doing it this way. Okay, so again, we're just gonna go have our terminal on one side. Let's put it over here, and then we're gonna have Firefox on the other side, so that we can do all the practice. So practice 1, just clear. I'm gonna make sure that I'm home. I am in home, good, as you can see. So first command, run this curl command. So we got a curl -s https cis106.com/assets/wildcard practice.sh, and pipe it into bash. After you finish this, you should have a directory called wildcard practice. Just make sure the directory contains all the necessary files. And yeah, it's full of files, so we're good. Next, list all the files inside the wildcard directory. There you go, we already did that, containing the word random. So let's modify this command. Let's do clear, and let's do ls-a, because we're listing all the files that contain the word random. So that would be wildcard practice random . And we do it this way because we don't know where the word random is located in the file name. It could be at the beginning, in the end, in the middle, we don't know. So we put a star here and a star over there, and we forget about the rest. Press enter, and indeed we have a file that contains underscore and random at the beginning, and then random at the beginning again with more stuff. List all the CSV, TXT, and TXT files in the Wildcard practice directory. Okay, so we're gonna repeat the previous command, but this time we're gonna provide a star period CSV, because an extension starts with a period and then a 3 or 4 letter characters. And then we're gonna do the same thing here, Wildcard practice star.txt. Again, give me all the CSV files and all the TXT files in these directories. Press enter, and indeed TXT and CSV files were displayed. List all the files that contain the word sample in the file name, and all the markdown files inside the Wildcard practice directory. So now we're gonna do a combination of two. Here I'm gonna give me all the markdown files. Markdowns are .md, and the ones that contain the word sample. Again, sample. All done. I'm gonna take my screenshot. I'm gonna save it in labs number 6. And I'm gonna name it practice1.png. Click on save. Okay, I'm only gonna do one. You have been doing this the entire semester. You know exactly what to do. Okay, so once you finish, make sure you preview your document. Make sure all your screenshots are visible. So in my case, I don't see this one, and that's because I save it in the wrong place. I save it in the wrong place. I'm doing practice, not the lab. So let's go and fix that. I'm gonna fix it graphically, but you could do it in the command line as well. Yeah, you know what? Let's just do it graphically because I already have the file manager open. So what now? So let's go to labs, lab number 6. This is the file. Just gonna cut it from there, and I'm gonna paste it in week report number 6. That's because I made a boo-boo. I made a mistake. Refresh it, and yep, perfect. So now that I know that my file is right, I'm gonna export to PDF, and now repeat the process. Finished week report 6, and then git push. Now you go and submit your week report because you are done. Now we can work on lab number 6. So I'm gonna create my markdown file, lab6.md, lab 6, question 1, question 2, question 3, and question 4, which is the challenge question. Okay, the cheat sheet is here as well, by the way. Okay, let's move on. Once you finish reading all of this, before you work on this lab, you need to run this command over here. This command is going to create a directory called lab number 6 in your home directory. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's sure that we run this command. I'm going to clear my screen over here. And if I do ls, I should see a directory called lab number 6. Okay, perfecto. Okay, next, question 1, using the star wildcard. Just like in the previous lab, here is the solution to each and every one of the questions, right? So you can either watch me do it, or you can just follow along in the screenshots over here on how I did them. I suggest that you try to do the question before you see the solution, so that you can see where are your weak points and which are the things you need to pay the most attention to. And just like every other lab, these have a challenge question. In this case, it's going to be question number 4, And for challenge question, you need to run this command that's gonna download all the files that you need to do this challenge question. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on the challenge question now and explain it to you, and then we're gonna go each and every one of the questions one by one. So for the challenge question, again, we're gonna copy this command and we're gonna run it in our terminal. Again, this is gonna create another directory here called Wildcard Practice. Sorry, not Wildcard Practice, it's called Challenge Lab number 6. Notice that it has a capital L in there that contains all of these files. The goal of the challenge question is, using brace expansion, you're gonna create categories of directories where these files will be stored, right? So all the audio files go in one place, all the videos go in one place, you know, and so on, right? Once you create the directories that they're supposed to go in, and the directories, you can create them right there inside challenge lab number 6 if you want, that's fine. Then you're going to use wildcards to move the files to their respective directories in a single command, meaning all the audio files should be moved in one command, all the video files should be moved in a single command, and so on. The trick here, or the challenge here, is identifying one, how many file types do you have here? And then second, identifying how are you going to organize the files? What are the folders that I'm going to create? And then the last challenge here is these wildcards, how can I write them so that they match more than one file at the same time? For instance, I'm going to give you an example in which I could do this. Notice that I have a GIF and I have a JPEG, so these are images. So I know that I have images here. So I'm going to create a folder called images. I have MP3 files, and notice that these are the same color, so OGG, MP3, and WAV. These are audio files, so I can call it audio, I can call it music, I can call it songs. All of that describe these 3 files to perfection. So I know I'm going to have a second folder called music, right? And then you can do the same thing for the remaining of the folder of the files. I put here in the section what you shouldn't do, right? What you will lose points if you do. This should allow you to come up with a strategy in your mind on how you can do this. So you need to create that you are not allowed to create one directory for each file type. What does that mean? You are not allowed to create one directory for GIF, one directory for JPEGs, one directory for MP3, one directory for MP4, and one directory for ODT. You're not allowed to do that because it defeats the purpose of categorizing these files. You're not allowed to move the files one by one, because if you do so, then what was the point of learning how to use wildcards, right? You need to find a way to group the files so that you can move them and work with them in a single command. And then finally, you're not allowed to create the directories one by one, meaning mkdir movies, mkdir videos. No, you need to create them using brace expansion. That's the whole point of having this over here. Now, this is an example. This is an example, right, of how the directory could look like. Yours doesn't need to look like this. For example, in here, I created a category for audio, then I split it into file types. But you don't have to. You can just have audio and then all the audio files over here, and that will be fine. You're not going to lose points for doing it that way. When you are done, display a tree of the Challenge Lab 6 directory, and all the files should be in their respective directories. And that's it. Use this as a reference only. Use it as a reference only. And here are some tips that can help you do this. There is an example on how to do this also in the presentation, and if you are having issues understanding what to do here, you can always request a call with me and we can go over the challenge question on a one-on-one basis. So now that we finished explaining the challenge question, let's go on and take a look at questions 1, 2, 3. So for question 1, you're going to be using the star wildcard, right? So actually, I'm going to let you figure this out on your own. So number 1, I'm not going to do. Number 2, I'm not going to do. Number 3 here, if you click on show solution, is referring to this command over here. And you can see how I arrived to the question slowly. So I am going to do number 3. so that I can show you how to work this out. So I'm gonna do clear, and here they ask me to do a long list of the lab 6 Q1 directory, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to split my terminal in two, and in this terminal I'm gonna list lab 6 Q1 so that I see all the files that I have. So I know I need a long list, so that's gonna be ls minus l. Now I need to modify the output of ls so that the group information doesn't appear. So if I do ls minus l, lab number 6, notice that this doesn't look like the output on the screen. So the user and group information should not be in the output. And again, you can split the terminal one more time, and you can do help ls. Sorry, I have a command in my computer for help, and that's what I thought it was on my other machine. ls help, or you can open the man page, whichever of the two. And in the options here, you can find the option that's gonna give you no group and no user. For example, no group, no user, or owner, G. So let's test it. G. Yes, we're getting closer. Next, we need to modify the file size. The file size needs to be human readable, and for that, it's an option that we use all the time. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's right there. So H. Okay, so we're getting closer. Let me just clear my screen there and test it over here instead. But now that we have the human readable file size, we need to modify the timestamp. So this one is a little tricky, but you have already used it before, which is time style. Time style, then we do plus percentage and then D. Why D? Well, you can go and look at the control characters list for the date command, and you're gonna see that D gives you the date exactly like we see in the example. So let's test it out. Plus percentage D. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So the next thing that we need to figure out here is, now, how do I only list the configuration files? Well, this is a little tricky here because we have different file types here. So I have log files, these don't qualify. I have CNF files, these are config files, right? Log files, CNF, conf, CF, CFG. So it seems like all the config files start with letter C. So I can do this. So in the Q1 directory, give me every file. I don't care about the file name, but the extension needs to start with letter C. So I'm gonna do period C, and then I don't care how many other characters they have after letter C, because I know the config files that I have in this folder start with letter C. As you can see, CNF, conf, and CFG. Press enter, and exactly we get only config files. And now I have my answer, which is this command over here. Perfect. Notice how I am using this terminal here at the top for testing my commands until I get the desired output. And I'm using this over here, this terminal at the bottom, to read the manual page of the ls command so that I can have it handy as a reference. And then this terminal on this side is what I'm using for actually answering the question once I figure out the proper command. If you get used to working like this, you're going to get 100 on your final exam for a fact, because there is not a thing that you're going to be able to miss. Okay, I'm going to move along to question number 2. I mean, the other sub questions of question 1 are fairly easy. You should be able to figure them out on your own. So I'm just going to take a screenshot of this, because that's all I need. And this is called q1.png. And yep, this is supposed to be stored in lab number 6, so I'm fine. So let's move along to question number 2. In question number 2, we will be using the question mark and the brackets wildcard. So I'm gonna do a couple of these and then we're gonna move on to question number 3. Again, this is fairly easy because the answers are right over here, and this really doesn't take that much thinking to figure out. I try to make it easy, throwing a couple of curveballs here and there, but for the most part, all of the questions are fairly easy to figure out. So I'm gonna move this on the side, and I'm gonna clear all of my screens. So I'm gonna clear the screen here, clear the screen over here, and then clear the screen over here as well. Now, I know that all my files are located in the Lab 6 Q2 directory. So let me just move this out of the way. I'm going to list the files over here on this side. So I'll do ls-1, and I'm gonna sort it by file extensions. Since I'm working with a lot of different file types, it will be nice to have file extension. And just in case, I'm also going to enable hidden files, because I wanna see everything that's inside the folder. And then we're inside lab number 6, Q number 2. So these are all the files that I have over here, right? And yes, indeed, I had a couple of hidden files there. So let's start with the step number 1, which is create the directory hidden files inside the lab 6 directory. So mkdir lab number 6 and then hidden files. Okay, now list only the hidden files that are in the Q2 directory. Copy them then, and then you're gonna copy them to the hidden files directory. So this is two instructions in one. First, we're gonna list, and then we're gonna copy. We're listing first so that we can make sure that our wildcard works. That's why we're listing first. And then once we do that, then we can copy, because we already figured out the correct wildcard to match the files that we need. And we need to match hidden files here. Notice that hidden files start with a period and then have their file name. So to list hidden files, we can simply use, as a matter of fact, let me open another terminal right over here. And I'm just gonna do ls-a. The reason why is because I wanna be able to see all my file types here. ls-a, and we're gonna do lab number 6, question 2, and period, because hidden files start with a period. Then I need them to have one character after the period and another character after the period. This is gonna make sure that, oops, sorry, I moved this to as a new terminal, and we don't want that. ls-a lab number 6, question 2. Okay, again, period, because all hidden files start with a period, and then 2 question marks. This is gonna make sure that the parent directory, which is represented by 2 periods, is not matched in my ls command. And then finally, I don't care about the remaining part of the name, right? It can have 0 characters, 1,000,000 characters, I don't care. What I care is that it has a period and it has 2 characters after the period. So press enter over here, and indeed we get characters that match hidden files. Now that I have been able to list the hidden files, I then can use this wildcard to copy them. And I need to copy them to the hidden files directory. So I'm gonna do cp. I'm gonna enable verbosity because I wanna see the files as they are being copied. The files are located in lab 6, question number 2, and the wildcard is period, question, star, and the destination is lab 6 hidden files. Press enter, and indeed it copied this file, this file, this file, and this file to hidden files right over there. Okay, so we're doing good. Next one. List all the files with a 2-letter file extension in the lab Q2 directory, and then remove them. I'm gonna let you figure that one on your own. If you follow the same logic that I'm doing over here, list your commands over here on one side so that you know, and then use this side over here for the remove command. When you finish, make sure that you take a screenshot of at least this part, right? I don't necessarily need to see the list command because I'm more concerned about you using the wildcard than you listing. I mean, you at this point you know how to use ls properly. So what I want to see is the wildcard itself. So you don't need to give me the whole terminal. You can just give me the one that you use for typing the last command, which in this case will be the remove command. Okay, I'm gonna let you do number 3 alone. List and then remove all the files with a 4-letter extension that start with letter T and then with letter X. Okay, this one is gonna be a good one for us to do together. So I'm gonna do number 4 with you. So we're gonna list all the files that have a 4-letter file extension. Okay, so I'm gonna do ls -1 lab number 6 question 2, and I need the 4-letter file extension, so I don't care about the file name. File extensions start with a period, and I do 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4-letter, right? I get 4 letters, 4 letters, 4 letters, and 4 letters. But notice that the question says 4 letters and they end with an X, which means that 4 question marks and an X is not gonna work here. We need to repeat the command, but then remove one of the X's, one of the question marks, and put an X in the end. And now we're gonna get all the files that contain a 4-letter file extension and end with an X. As you can see, because in the directory there are no other 4-letter file extension, the output was the same. But if there were to be other files here, for example, I'm just gonna make to touch lab number 6 question 2. You don't need to do that part, by the way. I'm doing it just for demonstration purposes. I'm gonna do file, and JSON has 4 letters, HTML has 4 letters, GDoc has 4 letters, right? And now if you repeat the previous command where you have 4 question marks, notice that you get the doc files, right? But you also get these files here because they match this wildcard. Now that's why if we do 3 question marks and an X, we're making sure that the file ends in an X. Press enter, and yes, indeed, we get the files that we need. So now we need to remove those files. So I can do rm, and again, I'm just gonna enable verbosity, lab 6, question 2, and here we put our wildcard, which will be a star, because we don't care about the file name, period, because it is a file extension, and then 1, 2, and 3 letters, and finally the last letter, which has to be an X. Press enter and see how these files were removed. Okie dokie. Then you have instruction number 5, list of the files inside the lab6q2 directory that start with letter L, lowercase, or letter R, and have one letter and have one vowel after letter L or letter R, and a number before the file extension. Now this is a good one because this one requires you to slowly break down the wildcard. So again, I'm just gonna clear this here because this is just my working area, and I need to get files that start with lowercase l. Okay, so again, I'm gonna do ls lab number 6 question number 2, and I need the files to start with letter L. Okay, or with letter R. Okay, this one gets interesting because now I need to provide 2 letters. So that's when the brackets become useful, because I can do LR, a letter L or letter R. They have one vowel after letter L or R. So again, I'm going to use another set of brackets here, and the vowels are A, E, I, O, U. There are no more vowels in the alphabet, and then they have a number before the file extension, which means the remaining of the file name is of no use to us. We don't care about the remaining file name. So now we need to match one number before the file extension. Okay, so numbers are digits, which mean 0 to 9. There are no more digits in the decimal system. Then period, because that number has to be exactly before the file extension. Right, so that's the number, and then the period that signifies the beginning of the file extension. And which extension are we talking about? We don't care. It doesn't matter the extension. Again, let's review the wildcard. The file starts with either L or R. It contains a vowel after the two letters. We don't care about the remaining of the file name, but we care that it has a number before the file extension. The extension starts with a period, therefore I type a period. And then we don't care about the file extension itself. It can be txt, it can be docx, we don't care. Press enter here, and indeed notice that the files start with L, files start with R, and they have a number over here, and then the file extension. Now we need to create a directory called random inside lab number 6, and then we are going to move those directories that we listed in step number 5. So again, mv, lab number 6, question number 2, and this is my wildcard over here. So that will be LNR. And finally, the destination, which is gonna be lab number 6, random. Press enter, and that's it. Take your screenshot. And this is question number 2. .png. And save. Okay, now let's clear our screen. And let's move along to question number 3. For question number 3, we're gonna be using brace expansion. And we have 1, 2, and 3 problems to solve for brace expansion. All we have to do is simply create these directories. And after we create these directories, we're gonna have problem number 4, where we're gonna use brace expansion for creating files, right? Files that have different names that make it really difficult to use brace expansion on. So let's go over here. Well, I misspoke. Brace expansion makes it easy to create those files because we don't need to type 3 different paths, right? We can just type the path once and then a brace expansion in the end, and it will work for us. So let's see this in practice. The first one that we need to create is the wallpapers directory, right? So we're gonna do mkdir, and we need to create this in the lab 6 directory. So lab number 6, we're gonna need to use -p, right? And I'm gonna enable verbosity too, just so that you see how it's working. So we're gonna create a directory inside lab number 6 called wallpapers. Wallpapers is gonna contain another directory called cars, which will contain 3 directories, and this is where we do our brace expansion. It's gonna contain 1080p, it's gonna contain 2K, and it's gonna contain as well 4K. Press enter over here, and notice how it created lab number 6 wallpapers, then it created cars, then it created 1080p, 2K, and 4K. Okay. Now, in my next terminal, I'm gonna do the second question. You don't have to, you can do them all in one, but I'm doing it this way to demonstrate to you how versatile it is to split your terminal in multiple ways. Again, in the lab 6 directory, we're gonna create another set of directories called assets, and then there we're gonna put images, videos, and then another pair of directories. So mkdir, lab number 6, assets, and then here we have the first set of brackets, which is images, and then video. I'm pretty sure that you can see that this is not going to work. And then large, comma, small. Now I'm gonna do this on purpose because I want you to see this error message. Press enter and notice that it tells you, hey, I cannot make these folders because assets doesn't exist. Now, when you get this error message, check your spelling. You missed something. We missed the parent directory option that should create the parent directory and then the child directory inside. So let's fix our command. And again, I am going to provide pv so that I can see it, the verbose output, as the files are getting created. Okay, now I'm gonna do a tree here of both directories. Actually, I'm gonna do the tree right over here because that's part of what I need to submit, right? Okay, moving on. Then we need to do problem number 3, which is creating the docs directory. So we're gonna do much better. mkdir lab number 6, lab number 6, and now we do docs, and then inside docs we're gonna have one directory called books, and then inside books we're gonna have two directories, one called history and the other one called math, right? And now this is where it gets tricky, because if you look at the directory structure, you have fall and spring here, but then you have math. In math, you have 2024 and 2025, which is very different from what we did over here, where the continuing set of directories was the same for both of the previous directories, right? So this doesn't really work for us. Now, this is where breaks expansion becomes really useful, because all you can do is expand inside the first set of brackets, / and here I can type another brace expansion. And here I can type another brace expansion. So we have 2024, 2025. And then here we have fall and then spring. Press enter and notice that it created all the directories as we needed to. Now we need to create a file called book.pdf in all of those folders. And all we have to do is repeat the previous command, but in this case, we are going to use touch and then / book.pdf, because touch allows us to create the file, and that means that it's going to create book.pdf inside 2025 and inside 2024, and it's also going to do it inside fall and inside spring. Press enter and now display a tree of the docs directory, and exactly what we expected to happen happened. Finally, we're going to use brace expansion for creating files that have different names in a completely different location than where we are now. So we need to go to the file system. That's what from the root of the file system mean. So we're going to go to the root of the file system, and we are there. And once we are there, we need to create 3 files in the Q3 directory: program, people, and data.xls. So we're going to do touch lab number 6, question number 3. And here we're gonna create a brace expansion to provide the files as a list, which will be program.py, people.csv, and finally data.xls. Press enter over here, and then finally from the root of the file system, so exactly where we are, we're gonna remove file 0 old, file 1 old, and file 2 old. But can you tell that there is something about this file that looks familiar? For instance, they all have the same file extension, but they also have a numbers increment here, 0, 1, and 2. And this is another way in which we can use brace expansion to provide a range of numbers or a range of letters to a command. So here's how we're gonna do this one. We're gonna do rm lab number 6, question 3, right? And then here we're gonna provide the following expression, the following brace expansion. All the files start with an underscore, so I'm gonna put an underscore here. They all have the word file, and then they have a number 0 to 2. So here I'm gonna put open brace 0, 2 periods, and 2, so that it goes from 0 to 2. So file 0, file 1, and file 2. And then finally, they all have a file extension of that all. So I can do period all. And that's it. Press enter over here. And before I do that, I want to open another terminal here. And I want to show you 3 lab 6, question number 3. Notice that we have the files here, right there. These are the files that we're talking about. These files are gonna go away. Press enter, do 3 one more time, gone. Isn't that cool? And like I said in the presentation, in the class, you can use this in other ways too. For example, we can do touch lab number 6, question 3, file A to Z that CSV. And indeed, it's gonna create file A all the way to file Z. And we can use it for removing as well. Pretty cool. Okay, this ends lab number 6 video. So I'm just gonna take my screenshot here. I'm gonna take a screenshot of the whole screen this time around because we did have the tree command on the other screens. So this is gonna be a large one. And it's gonna be Q3. And that's it. Prepare your submission. Q1, Q1.png, Q2.png. This is improperly named, so let's rename it properly. And finally Q3.png. And here you're gonna put your challenge question when you finish it. Again, for your challenge question, when you're done, you need to do a tree command showing me all the files that were created. Unfortunately, I cannot solve it and show you the final result because the final result will show the organization that you are supposed to, and I'm pretty sure everybody's just gonna copy that instead of actually coming up with their own organization structure. If you have any questions, you know what to do. You can find me in Slack. I'll see you around.